Hey everyone, welcome back to another out of spec detailing video here from Clear Detailing in Northern Colorado. Today we've got a nice laid back video, also of course as always on this channel, giving you some helpful tips and tricks along the way. So we've got this bright orange C8 Corvette in the shop and we're going to be installing a ceramic coating, so I figured it was a good time to update you guys on a video on how to avoid common mistakes when ceramic coating a vehicle. So I'll take you through, give you some tips along the way as somebody who makes a living off installing ceramic coatings as well as doing a bunch of other detailing related services, and just help you along the way to make sure that your ceramic coating experience is as easy as possible and you're getting the most out of your ceramic coating. Welcome back to the channel. Let's jump into it. Well, it seems like as of recent, I've been getting quite a few emails, quite a few comments on some topics about installing ceramic coatings. Not only what coatings should I use, what towels, applicators, but talking about flash times, cure times, and people kind of struggling with some issues. So that's why I wanted to create this video. I've been in the industry for 12 plus years. Gosh, at this point, I have probably installed well into the hundreds of different ceramic coatings and, well over 1,000 total ceramic coating installs in my detailing career. So I know my way around ceramic coatings and can help you with some tips and tricks along the way. Now, in general, one of the first things I think you should know about ceramic coatings is they are all completely and absolutely different. Not only how they install, but their actual chemical makeup, whether they're SiO2 based, whether they're polyxylazine, xylazine based, graphene, the list goes on and on. Within that, you also have different solvents or different carriers to actually get the coating bonding to the surface that are going to flash off. We'll talk about that more later on in this video. But one of the biggest components, and why I want to put this right up front here, that is most important is actually in the prep. You can use the world's best ceramic coating. If you don't prep it properly, you're not going to have a coating that's going to bond properly, and it's not going to last as long as it's intended to be. So what does prep typically look like? Well, prep can look like a few different things, but in general, when we're talking about it, you need to have a car that is clean, contamination free, and basically have nothing on the surface, what we call naked paint. Now, typically we'll go through, wash the vehicle, do a decontamination on it, whether that's chemical, whether that's mechanical, using clay bars, using iron removers, using a combination of both. The next step, typically what I look for is at bare minimum, a machine polish. You can think of this as kind of exfoliating your skin, picking up dead skin, removing it. It's going to help get the surface as nice as humanly possible. Now, what I also recommend normally is doing a full paint correction and a full polish. I think it makes little to no sense to have even a brand new vehicle come in, have swirl marks, sanding marks, all of that fun stuff in the paint and ceramic coat on top of it, because once you put that coating, if you see that stuff and you want to remove it, you're going to have to remove that coating. I just like to do the work up front, make the paint look as good as humanly possible, and then put ceramic coating on it for long-term protection. Now, after you've gone through, done your correction and your polish, typically you'll have a lot of compound or polishing residue. This can look like a couple different things. Depending on the polish you're using, you may have a lot of oil in it. Some of the polishes, and this is a really important fact here, some of the polishes out there actually have fillers in them. And you want to ensure that you are not using polishes with a bunch of fillers in them, because that's not going to allow the coating to actually bond. And with that, how to remove that stuff is by using a panel prep spray. Now, there's many different options out there. Yes, you can use isopropyl alcohol. I typically like to use something made by said coating manufacturer, whether you're using a Geon coating, a G-Technic, Adams polishes, you're using Armor Detail Supply. I always recommend going with their panel prep spray and use it with their ceramic coating. So today we're going to be installing Clean by Pan's 8-year coating on the C8 Corvette, and we're going to be using his panel prep spray. What that's going to do, yet again, is go in there, break down the polishing residue, polishing oils, and make sure that our surface is squeaky clean and there's nothing that's going to actually interfere with the ceramic coating flashing onto the surface. This C8 Corvette has already gone through the initial prep stages, so I went through, did a full contact wash on this vehicle, did a full decontamination. It's already been cut, already been polished, but now really the most critical step here, and that is using our panel prep spray. So inside the press-all bottle here, this is Clean by Pan the Organizer's panel prep spray, and we've also got our towels here. Now actually, big shout out to Bradley at Armor Detail Supply for turning me on to these panel prep spray towels. They sell these in their, exclusive pink fuchsia color here. I like to color coordinate my towels, so these towels only are used for panel prepping, and then we'll have other towels for removing polishing residue. I don't like to mix it because you can introduce some more sorts of oils, any of that. Even if you're washing these towels over time, it's nice to have these strictly dedicated for this. These are basically the Rag Company FTW towels, which are actually used for windows. Bradley though started using these, and I couldn't be more thrilled with these. So you can see I have two towels here. I've got a dry towel, talk about that in a second, and a wet towel. What I mean by the wet towel, that is going to be our first initial wipe with this. So how this will look, first off, you can see I fold these into quarters. I don't understand why people ever use towels like this. Number one, it doesn't give you a even consistent clean around it. You can see it bunches up in my fingers like that. That's how you get a bunch of streaks. You're also taking a single towel, only breaking it into two sections, whereas if I fold this up into quarters, now I've got a towel with 8 sections. I can stay organized, I can stay clean, minimizing any sort of risk of scratching or anything like that. So what I typically do here is I will mist down my panel. You don't need a ton here. I'm gonna spray it directly onto my wet towel. Now, what I'm gonna do is come in here and actually work this in. After I do a section like that, I'm gonna grab my dry towel and pick up any remaining residue from that panel prep spray. All panel prep sprays, again, just like ceramic coatings, slightly different. Some will kind of streak a little bit over time. Some of them are actually pretty good. You don't necessarily need that dry towel. It's just a little insurance policy. Now, what I typically do is go around the entire car in one go. So I'm not, doing this section and then coating this section and then wiping this down. But what I also like to do is actually, once I've finished going around the car, I grab another set of towels here and I go around and do the car a second time. That's an insurance policy, making sure that all of those polishing oils, anything left behind, is completely gone. I cannot tell you how important this step is to do. Do not skip this. So I'm going to continue on, do the rest of the car here, go around the second time, and then we'll talk about installing coatings. Now we've gone through, we've fully panel prep sprayed the entire vehicle twice. We're now ready to talk about our coating. So a few common mistakes people make here is, number one, trying to work outside when installing a coating. Why you think a lot of people try and do this? They may be installing their first coating at home, trying to do it in their garage. You don't have great ambient lighting. That's a very important thing when installing ceramic coatings, is to have good lighting. Now you can supplement lighting by having lights like scan grips. I like to have a mixture of both. So of course I've got this well-lit detail bay and the scan grips. So that's making sure we're not leaving high spots. We'll talk about what that means. But the reason I would avoid trying to do this outside, a lot of the times the panels, especially if you're working in the sun, are going to cure differently when it comes to installing your actual coating here, which can cause a little bit of havoc. And also if the wind picks up, you're blowing dust into it, you're getting the coating curing quicker, you might miss that window, and it can be a little tricky to install. So very important. The other thing I like to have here is a clean working station that I can take around the car. So this will hold both our coatings, our applicators, all of our towels, all of our lights, things like that. It's really nice to have this so you're not setting towels on dirty areas, you're not setting them on the car, leaving cured coating on certain panels. Just creates a little bit of a mess. So let's first talk about our applicator here. These are Autofiber Auto Savers here. This is my personal preferred coating applicator for every coating. Now, every single ceramic coating has a different type of applicator they actually recommend. I really like these. They are small, meaning that you can get them into tight areas. A lot of guys, especially professional detailers, because they're going quick, like to use a large applicator. This is my preferred one because it can go in the nooks and crannies. The larger ones get a little tricky, especially getting in grills, recessed areas, things like that. This is my preferred one. These also have a hydrophobic barrier underneath them so that you're not just wasting coating going into the actual foam here, so it stays right on top of the microfiber. Now for our towels here, this is my preferred way to do it. Now again, every single coating manufacturer, like the Applicator, likes to pair it with their coating towels. Why? Well, they can sell you more towels, making more money in general. These are my preferred ones, which I use for every single different type of ceramic coating. So first off here, we have the Rag Company Edgeless 300 towels here. This is going to be our initial level towel. Now with these are shorter nap, lighter GSM on these. They are not meant to pick up everything on the ceramic coating. You are trying to get between 80 to 90% of the coating off. Then you're going to follow it up with something like this, the Eagle Edgeless 500 from the Rag Company. That is going to be your final wipe down. You only need 2 towels for this. Now, if you're working on a large vehicle with a coating that cures quite quickly, again, very coating dependent here, you might need 2 sets of these towels. So you might need a double of the flash towels and of your final wipe here. Now personally, when I'm installing coatings, these are single-use towels. Yes, it's expensive to do, but when I'm charging thousands of dollars to spend 4 to 5 days fully correcting, fully polishing, removing wheels, coating everything on a vehicle, it's okay to have some cost here in having your towels. The reason behind this is the coating cures in your towels. Yes, you can try and wash them right away. Typically, you're not going to get everything out. You have cured coating in a towel. It's going to be worse down the road. You can cause marring on paint after the fact with it. So these are single-use towels. I'll use it on this car. They go in the trash. Next car I coat, grab fresh towels here. So now that we understand all that, let's get into more of the intricacies installing the actual coating. All right, we've got our fresh applicator set up here and our actual bottle of coating. First thing you want to do is make sure you actually shake this up. A lot of the times you can get some separation in here. You want to make sure this is fully shaken up. Now, the next important thing to do here is actually to prime our applicator. Now, typically when we're doing this, you'll see a lot of guys go in a single line like this. You can see Pan's coating is quite a thick coating. It doesn't really like to come out. Some will be very runny. Now, what I typically like to do is around 3 lines of this. It looks a little messy just with how this coating comes out. I like to apply it overly on the first one. So I'm going to smush this together and we are ready to start on our first panel. That is going to ensure we're getting even coverage on the first one, and then we're just applying a little bit of the coating as we continue going on here. The next thing you need to make sure you do every time you install some coating on your applicator, put the cap back on this. Once this reacts with oxygen, it does start curing. So big important thing here, every single time you come off the panel, put the cap back on. Needs to happen every single time. One of the things I like to do anytime I'm installing a coating is rather than testing it in an inconspicuous area, put it right on the hood. Why? That is the area we can get a feel for the coating first. You just kind of need to send it. If you're putting it on a lower bumper area or in an inconspicuous area, you're not going to see how that coating is going to flash. We have the best amount of light here. We can start to understand the coating. The biggest mistake people do when installing a coating first time is try to work in too large of a section. Keep it small, start understanding the coating, and then expand as you get more and more comfortable with it. Now, when I start installing coatings, what I like to do is do something like this, and it's called a T. So you can see I'm working this in. There's a few different ways you can actually do this, but I'm going to work in a singular motion here. Now, a lot of coating manufacturers actually recommend that you install ceramic coatings in a crosshatch motion. I am actually not the biggest fan of that for a couple of reasons. A lot of different ceramic coatings flash differently. Those flashing, what that actually means, you have carriers and solvents in here. It's going to flash off the surface. You're going to see two sometimes maybe 3 different distinct notions of each ceramic coating. Pan's coating here is going to actually rainbow. Something like Armor Details Supply's quartz coating, instead of actually rainbowing, going to turn into sweat beads. Sometimes you'll see coatings haze up. Now it's very important with this that when you're installing it, if you have a coating that cures quickly, if you're doing this entire section and cross hatching it, you can actually essentially peel up that layer, not letting it actually cure. You're getting more solvent in there. So I like to do it in a singular motion here as much as possible. Now certain coatings you kind of need to cross hatch. I think mostly why they're doing that is people struggle to get a good even application throughout the panel, and instead of having high spots and low spots on there, you're getting a nice even coverage throughout. I can show you some more techniques as well. Something like Armor Detail Supply recommends doing it in a circular motion. I'm not a super big fan of that, especially in more intricate areas. I like using a straight line like this. Pan's coating here, for example, says between 1 to 2 minutes to do your initial level of your wipe off. Now you can actually see here, especially in the light, it's a little harder than I actually expected on the orange here to see, but you can see we have all of that rainbowing effect, which means that this coating has flashed off the surface. Now you might also see areas like this on stripes where it's flashing off more here versus up here. Now vinyl reacts to this a little bit differently. You have to kind of figure that out, but typically it's about ready to go at this point. So what we'll end up doing here is we'll come to our first towel here. This is our level towel, and I like to work in circular motions. Now Pan's coating is a very easy, very forgiving ceramic coating, and I'm just going to come in here and initially level this. Now you'll notice I don't have everything off the surface. That is totally okay. What I like to do, again keeping our towels folded into quarters, is I'm going to come back in on the other side and work this bad boy in here. Now that will get us about 95% there, if not slightly more. Then I can actually come back into this little area quickly here, wipe it off. You'll still see some high spots, some things like that, and we're going to wipe this away. Now it's really important that before you move on to the next section, you come back with your final towel here, and we're going to work this in, again in circular motions. We're going to make sure we get all of our corners. It's also really important here to use body lines. What I mean by that is I coated up to this body line, not onto here. But importantly, you want to wipe over into this section. It's very, very common when installing a coating, especially leveling it here, that you can get some on the adjacent panel that could cure. So for example, I might coat this hood, start all the way around the car, and not get back to this fender for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and that coating will be cured here. So it's really important to make sure we're over wiping in those areas. Now, the big important thing here, like I was saying, is make sure you are not working in too large of sections. So typically something like the C8 here, when I'm installing a coating, not showing you guys on video, I would install this whole hood. While that's sitting there curing, about a minute in, I might actually coat that entire fender. While that's curing, I'm wiping down the hood. Again, then I can go to the next panel, start going. It can go really quick if you're working with a very forgiving coating. Now, some coatings like Pan's here, this is a coating you can actually leave on for about 4 to 5 minutes and come back and wipe it off no problem. Other coatings, sometimes literally after a minute, you're gonna have a hell of a time actually removing it. So I personally like to use coatings that are very forgiving, very easy to use, but that also offer great performance. And that's why Pan's coating is one of my absolute favorites. There are great coatings out there. Armor Detail Supply quartz coatings, some of my other favorite ones. Adams makes great coatings. Geon makes great coatings. There are so many awesome ceramic coatings out there, but understand that they all install very differently. For example, Armor Detail Supply is a little bit less forgiving, especially on their Pro quartz coating. You kind of have to be on top of it, not necessarily saying it's not a entry-level coating, but it is a little bit harder to install and not as forgiving here as pans coatings. So now that I've come to the next panel here, I'm just going to apply a couple of drops to my actual coating applicator. And again, you can work in a T here, and we're just gonna work this product in. Now, once you get a good feel for this, like I said, you can start working in bigger sections. I think a couple of people, I do say to work small. Sometimes that can actually bite you depending on the said coating you're actually using here. Now, what I mean by that is you can see we've got quite a hard line here. And a lot of the times if we come back in and fill this, some of these coatings, because of those solvents in it, will actually swell the paint. And on darker colored vehicles, you can sometimes see a line like this. So it might be beneficial to slightly overwork your coating, meaning putting a little bit more on here and letting it flash off. The flash might take a little bit longer. One of the biggest things with coatings though is making sure you're getting it even and consistent throughout the panel. What I'm looking here on the stripe, you can see on the first one, I wasn't so ideal with it. You could see some areas like here were a little bit lighter than up here. I got a very consistent coverage all the way throughout here. Your first initial application of it, once you get that coating applicator a little bit primed more, will be a little bit better. It's not the end of the world for the first one. Just in general, we're trying to make sure we're getting this as even and level as possible. And as you can see, yet again, with pans coating here, I got it very even without doing a full crosshatch motion. Now, while that is curing up, once I'm starting to get more comfortable, I'm gonna start working over here on this fender. So I'm again going to use these body lines to my advantage, knowing that the hood will be primed, ready to go. And I can come in here and actually work this. So in these sections, it's a little harder to use a T. Doesn't really make sense to come in here and do all of this stuff. Now you'll notice that I got coating over here. Not a big problem, as long as when we're wiping this down after it's flashed, we make sure that we're over wiping those areas. So even over here, apply a couple more drops. Gonna come back in here. This I can actually work on a T. I know you guys can't necessarily see me perfectly, but you can probably see what's going on. And I'm going to continue installing this. Now, I typically like to work as much as I can top to bottom because I'm having to lean over this area certain times. You can get your shirt onto this panel, pick a little bit of that coating up. Again, not the end of the world, but it goes pretty darn well. So then I'll grab my towel here. I'll just work here. Another big benefit you can do is actually working with a border. So you'll notice that I started on the outside of the panel first, then I'll work myself in, because a lot of the times we forget the outside of the panel. Again, over wiping. Here, I'm not as worried about over wiping because I've got coating that is actually curing right here, and we'll pick that back up when we wipe this panel to come to the next surface. Then I'm gonna come here, wipe this down. And what I also want to do is grab a handheld light. I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to make sure I'm looking at everything, making sure I didn't leave any high spots. Then we can continue moving on. So next here, as I'm working on this, what I might do is actually fill in this top section here. Once that's installed, come back here, wipe this down, continue on that process. Again, the nice thing here with pans coating is I have a longer work time. So some of these coatings, again, I'm thinking to like Geon Mo's Evo that flashes in 15 seconds. You're literally installing half the hood at once, grab a towel, wipe it down a second time, and then move on to the next panel. Sometimes that's a little easier for people. Sometimes it's a little harder. I kind of prefer how this goes, that I can kind of let this sit, let it do its thing, and hopefully you guys can see, at least in person here, you see a lot of rainbowing effect. Now, barring that I was talking quite a bit, this is already cured up, ready to go. So again, seeing, working that border, working it in, flip, come on in here. Now, what you will notice throughout your coating install is that your first initial level here, especially, your towel will start to get loaded up, meaning that you have a lot of coating going into this towel that you're pulling off of the surface of the vehicle, and it's actually time to flip. Now, typically, I like to split the car kind of up into quarters since I'm using two sides here. So after this is totally loaded up, I'm kind of starting to push the coating around a little bit more. All I do here, again, working smart, flip that over. Now I've got a fresh side ready to go. That is why we don't use towels like a freaking animal and just use only two sides to it. It works really well for that. So now I can come back in here, do the same thing with this. And it's always important to know when you're flipping. So typically I'll do like this entire front end. Then I might do the roof, doors, and maybe a rear quarter panel. Flip that, do that on the other side, flip that, then I've got my rear bumper, and we're pretty much good to go with all four sides there. So I should need no more than two towels to do this entire car here, but it's a pretty straightforward process once you get going. Okay, so this becomes an area like on this C8 Corvette that you have to kind of strategically think and plan and organize a little bit of how you're actually going to install a front bumper. So you can see what I've done here. I've actually done the entire headlight. I've done all of this area, splitting it in half here. Now, what most people would probably end up trying to do is coat half of this entire bumper. Now you can see down here, we've got a lot of intricate grills and things like that. And we've also got plastic. Now, I think one of the things people get in trouble with here is they might try and do this whole thing at once. So what I've done, split this top section, came all the way down here, and I actually coated this plastic trim as well. Now, not all paint coatings work well with plastic trim here. Now, PAMS coating is one of the select few that actually does do that. So this is a coating you can use on wheels, you can use on glass, you can use on matte paint, gloss paint, pretty much everything, including PPF and vinyl. And I really like using it on plastic as well because it gives it a nice rich look. Now, a lot of the times previously, before I started really using this ceramic coating, a lot of the polyxylazane coatings that I was using did not react well with plastic coatings down here, and that became a little bit of a problem. What I mean by that is when I was coming down here coating intricate areas like this, you can see it's actually at an angle there. If I would get paint coating on here and then come back with my trim coating, I would actually have a little spot that was rejecting the trim coating there. So my personal preference is not to use coatings like that so that you can coat everything in one. Now, typically on a vehicle like this with intricate grills, I also want to coat that. Why? Because these areas are really, really annoying to keep clean. They hold a lot of dirt. You're not hitting them every single time with a wash mitt. At least I would suspect most of you aren't. So what I'll probably end up doing, coating the whole car, and then just in this grill area I can come back and coat each one of those individual hexagonal pieces there as well as here. But the main area I can coat all of this. So while this section was curing, typically what I'd come down here and do is coat all of the larger areas, wipe that off. While that's curing, come back in here and do that. Again, you start thinking about processes and organizing yourself. It's super important to stay organized. And again, that's why I like having a table here so that I can go my first wipe, second wipe. I know I'm still on my first initial level towel there. So once I get to that quarter panel over there, I'll flip that over and I'll flip my red one. Again, having everything color coordinated using different towels makes your life so much easier. All right, so just install this over here while that's curing. I'm actually gonna start working on the roof here again because I'm not wanting to lean over this side panel. Now this is the perfect example of a panel you can really get carried away and you can get very unorganized. So we've got our A pillar here. We've also got this little window triangle. This comes up into quote unquote our B pillar. Now this would be very easy to, of course, split the hood here. And then you start seeing some intricacies here. Do you actually go into all the grills? Do you start working into this panel? What I would recommend is before you start installing this, come up with a little bit of a game plan. What I mean by that is you can see we've got our surface up here and we've got this area. So a lot of the times what most people are probably going to try and do is actually coat into this area, maybe split this panel up here. Again, what I was teaching you earlier, split this up by body line. So what I'm going to actually coat is from this area all the way over here, including that little window triangle there, and I'm going to coat this area here. That leaves me with this panel that I can actually start working on. Now this becomes another more complicated panel. You can see how much larger this is. Do you split this up? Do you over apply it? Use quite a bit. Now, one thing I want to show you here that I think really a lot of people struggle with is knowing how much coating to actually install here. So what I like to do, again, remember we've got a very primed pad, is roughly about that much for Pan's coating, roughly about the same amount for everyone else's. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna smush this together. That's gonna level it out. Now on this panel, what you can also do instead of using the T motion is you can actually border this, and you can also swipe this across here. That makes sure my borders are covered in here. And then you can see I'm picking up coating from up top there and in the middle. Now again, with some of those coatings that cure really quickly, you could be peeling up that section or that section there. So I'd recommend kind of working in this area. This is where a lot of people just kind of in general, I would say, get into a little bit of trouble, is because they apply that amount and then they just think they can coat that entire panel, even though it's quite large. So what I would actually come do, knowing that I got the largest amount here, I'm gonna come back here. I'm gonna probably just give it 3 small dabs like that, put the lid back on. I'm going to, again, get that all leveled in there. Then I can work this section here, again, creating my border. And I'm gonna come all the way up here and work this in. Again, I think most people here would try to just, you know, with that amount of coating there, try and do that entire section. Likely what's gonna happen is you're gonna have lighter coating back here. You're gonna have inconsistency. What I typically recommend you guys have is actually over apply the coating instead of under apply it. Now, if you over apply it, that means your flash time is going to probably be slightly longer. If you under apply it, you have less carriers, less solvents in there. It actually flashes quicker. So I personally prefer to do it this way. As you can see down here while I was actually coating, I got a little on the glass. So you just want to be very observant of that. So when I come to actually wipe this down, I want to make sure I actually wipe that panel on the glass there, making sure I'm not leaving a high spot. But this is cured up here. It's pretty much ready to be wiped off. All right, guys, so again, I want to show you here a large panel with very little breaks in it and how I would kind of split this up and think about it. So again, remember this area, just keeping organized here, we didn't coat this. Now, again, if we tried to come down here, it might get a little awkward. You might have some swelling in the paint. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to, as I said again, work around the vents. I'm going to border this area and start filling it in. Now, what I'm looking for here is how the coating is actually applying. By about this time here, I'm starting to see that it's not light, but it's starting to be a little bit less than over here in these heavier areas. So now I'm going to come back. I'm going to put a little bit of a line there, again, knowing that I'm working on a big section, and I'm going to fill this in on the corner. Boom, and then we can come in and work that there. That's going to give us good, consistent, even coverage all the way throughout. Now again, this is an area a lot of people might start coming down into here. I'm going to skip that. Now, keeping in mind where I'm actually at here, we've coated this section, so I want to keep that as kind of a mental screenshot. Now I want to start working on this section here. So while that is starting to cure up, I'm going to know that when I come back to start wiping, I'm going to start up here, work my way down there, splitting it coming from this tip here. So I'm saying you really want to work with your actual body lines here. I can't stress enough how much that actually helps do this. So I'm going to come back into here. I'm going to come all the way down the center. I'm going to border this section. Now again, another area I can really start getting into a little bit of trouble here is if I start to coat the entire spoiler, go underneath it, do all of that. I'm watching as I'm doing this how the coating is actually applying, making sure that I'm getting even consistent coverage. I would probably skip the spoiler on this and wait for this until you come down back, because I've got a nice hard body line here. Even if I got coating in there, totally okay to do. Also just noticing here, I missed that little spot. So I didn't do this quite ideally here. Now, I'm also going to, while we're at it here, coat this inner section just because I'm here curing, all good to go. But now I know a little bit of a game plan or a screenshot of where I'm gonna start. Start up here, work in circular motions, not getting into that vent. Come down here, right to that tip, work my way down here, border this about halfway where I finished. It takes a lot of, thinking when you're doing this. I think a lot of people, especially easier cars, like a Tesla is one of the easiest darn cars to coat out there because you can coat an entire door. It's a very manageable size. This is where things start to get complicated. You have intricate areas, you've got a large panel, you've got spoilers, things like that. That's where I see a lot of people really getting into a lot of trouble here. So we're gonna flip that over. Again, making sure we're over wiping there. I'm gonna come in here. Notice what I did there? I kind of created a point on my towel, and then I'm gonna work this into the center. You can see how that goes away. Got a little bit of residue, another point there, boom, and we're good to go. So then come back up here, just over wipe all of that. We're looking good. Now, if I want to, while that's still curing, I know I've got a little bit of time left, can come in here, quickly hit all of this, make sure everything's good. This is such an amazing coating to work with because I don't really have to think about wiping it off. Some of these darn coatings out there, man, they really make you work for it. And they're just like wiping flipping honey off of the surface of your car. And I hate nothing more than that. It drives me up an absolute wall. So here I've got this spoiler. Let's work underneath that. We'll get that a little bit later on. Border this in, work the center, flip. It becomes kind of second nature to me, so I love making these videos for you guys because it really makes me think about how I coat cars and how to become a better detailer. That's what this is all about. It's teaching you guys kind of a love for detailing and also helping me out because it really makes me sit down and think and maybe how I can do things better. A panel like this, I don't work on C8s every single day. When I work on like a Tesla Model Y, which I do, at least a couple of months, I just know how to do it. I could probably do it with my darn eye closed almost. So yeah, it's a fun little challenge to work on different cars, split things up. Now I can come back up here. Again, folding that towel more into a point, gonna do an initial level. This is an area a lot of you are gonna leave high spots. So really make sure getting in there, over wiping, and you want to make sure you are 100% checking this with your light source to make sure you're not leaving any of those darn high spots in there. Come back here and here with our fluffy. Boom. Also like to wear a headlamp with this so I can kind of watch. It just kind of freaks out the camera a little bit, which is why I have it off here. And I'll grab my light. Check all those intricate areas, looking good, all into here. And before I move on to the next panel, I want to ensure that I've got absolutely everything removed. I don't want to leave anything there. I don't want streaks. I want the paint to look absolutely perfect, just like that. Well guys, I'll probably end this one off here for you, and I really hope some of these tips and tricks help you along the way, whether you're installing your first ceramic coating, whether it's your 10th, or just really starting to still get in the groove of things, because ceramic coatings, in my impression, are something that can be done by non-professionals for sure. It just takes a lot of experience to get things right, and there's a lot of things to think about, and I think people really get a little bit over your skis, if you will, when installing ceramic coatings, and that's how people have bad experiences. So hopefully this will help some of you out there. Hope you really enjoyed it, but we'll see you in the next one soon. Bye-bye.